name implies, we're not just a classics department that studies the literature and language of ancient Greece and Rome, but we're also a department that encompasses the continuation of those cultures and of those languages in the Christian world. Specifically, the fathers of the church, the Greek fathers of the church, and the Latin fathers of the church, continuing even right on up into the Middle Ages, which is my specialty. If you were to come to Christendom College and were interested in studying ancient languages and ancient secular and Christian culture, you would first take core courses in either Latin or Greek or both. To be a major, you have to have them in both. 2 years of college level introductory classes in Latin and 2 years of the same in Greek. Thereafter, you would advance to the dessert table, so to speak, where you would study all kinds of classes and seminars on literature, on philosophy, some on theology, poetry, prose, historians, the Greek literature and the Latin literature of antiquity are two of the great literatures in the history of the world. Add to that the fact that you'd have the chance to study in some depth the great fathers of the church, both Greek and Latin, and you can see just how rich an opportunity you have not only to master those languages, Greek and Latin, which are languages crucial to the church, but also to acquire a foundation a foundation that not only covers the thought of Western civilization, of course, with Greece and Rome, but a foundation for the thought of the church itself, and that would be any theology has developed out of the writings and the thoughts of those great fathers. There's another thing that's really exciting about what we do here is Christendom College. It's the reason I came to work in this department, is interested in what I'll call active language learning, right? So not only just reading ancient languages, but to the extent possible, writing them and even speaking them. And so we incorporate those ways of learning. Of course, the idea is not that people will go around in the contemporary world speaking Latin as a native language. Again, the idea is rather that to read, to think with the authors themselves as an expert, to really think with native fluency, though the active ways of learning languages help you to do that, and it's something we're very excited about and proud of. We even run Latin immersion programs here to that end. So why would you want to come to Christendom to study classical and early Christian studies, in addition to all the other great reasons for coming to Christendom College? Well, simply put, those languages, that thought, is going to be a foundation for wisdom, for one thing, the most important of all, but also for anybody who has any interest at all in going on to graduate school, be it in philosophy, be it in theology, be it in history, even in things like English literature. Those languages are indispensable. And in fact, a classical and early Christian studies major or minor combined with one of those other fields is without doubt an ideal preparation and background for graduate study. Finally, let me add that the church itself stands in great need these days of people who know those languages. Let me liken this. The church has this treasury of literature going back several millennia in Latin and even in Greek. And up till about a generation ago, the church could take for granted that we had people who were true masters of those languages. If you think back to the opening debates at the Second Vatican Council in the 60s, one French and German and Italian bishop after another got up and in fluent Latin, Ciceronian Latin, they stood and debated whether or not we should have the vernacular Mass. Well, we all know how that came out, but Latin remains the official language of the church, and it's so important for understanding the church's past. Right now, of course, seminaries no longer require Latin, and the last great Latin thinkers and speakers, priests who were Latin thinkers and speakers who were some of the greatest scholars, the roll call of scholars in the 20th century is filled with those names. That generation has passed away. And so a new day has dawned. There's a crying need for people to have that ability so that they can access that tradition, think those thoughts in the languages they were written. And in fact, I believe, although we need, as now as much as ever, clergy and religious who can do so, there's an obvious call for lay people to do that as well. And Christendom is an ideal place to acquire the ability to do that.